Session 8. Industrial Revolution, Markets and Economic Systems. Introduction. In this study session, we will examine the Industrial Revolution in relation to agriculture, industrial and post-industrial societies. We will examine the three major economic systems practiced in the world today. These are capitalism, socialism, and communism. We will also discuss the markets and the concept of division of labor. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Define economy and explain the three industrial revolutions. 2. Describe the nature of markets. 3. Discuss the division of labor in the economic system. What is economy? The word economy is the social institution that organizes the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. To say that the economy is institutionalized implies that it operates in an established manner that is predictable, at least in its general outline. Goods are commodities ranging from necessities such as food, clothing, and shelter to luxury items such as automobiles, swimming pools, etc. Services refers to valued activities that benefits others, including the work of religious leaders, physicians, police officers, and telephone operators. We have goods and services because they ensure survival or because they make life easier, more interesting, and more aesthetically pleasing. The things we produce and consume are important to the formation of our self-concept and social identity. How goods and services are distributed then shape the lives of everyone in basic ways. Marconi's 1995. Industrial Revolution. A significant change was first the development of agricultural societies and the wide-ranging impact of the Industrial Revolution. Now, the Industrial Revolution is giving way to the growth of post-industrial societies, a development in the economic system with far-reaching consequences for how society is organized. Anderson and Taylor, 2004. Agricultural Revolution. Members of the earliest human society relied on hunting and gathering activities to live. In this technological simple society, there was no distinct economy. Rather, production, distribution, and consumption of goods were all dimensions of family life. The development of agriculture about 5,000 years ago brought about a revolutionary change in those societies. Agriculture emerged as people harnessed manual power to plow, increasing the productivity power of hunting and gathering more than tenfold. The result, surplus, meant that not everyone had to be engaged in food production. Some people began to adopt specialized economic roles, forging craft, designing tools, raising animals, and constructing dwellings. Marconi's 1995. With the development of agriculture underway, towns emerged, soon to be linked by networks of traders dealing in foods, animals, and other goods. Jacobs, 1970. These four factors, agricultural technology, productive specialization, permanent settlement, and trade, were the keys to a revolutionary expansion of the economy. Agricultural production remains a vast part of the world economy, although now it has been changed by the processes of industrialization. Probably the most significant historical development affecting the social organization of work. Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution, that is usually pinpointed as beginning in the middle of 18th century Europe, soon thereafter spread into other parts of the world, and this has led to numerous social changes. The creation of factories separated work and family by relocating the place where labor was performed. The Industrial Revolution also transformed the consumption of energy and natural resources with the large-scale use of coal, steam, and later electric power, the basis for running the machinery needed for production. Industries became highly specialized. Workers would repeat the same action many times over the course of a working day, involved in only one step of the production, not the total process. Another economic change of Industrial Revolution was the creation of cash-based economy. Laborers were paid in cash and goods were sold not for exchange, but for their fair cash value. In all, the social relation created by the Industrial Revolution was hard, fundamental. Post-industrial societies. We still live in a society that is largely industrial, but quickly giving way to a new kind of social organization. Post-industrial society, where industrial societies are primarily organized around the production of goods. Post-industrial societies are organized around the provision of services. For instance, the United States have moved from being a manufacturing-based economy to a service-based economy. The provision of services pertains to a wide range of economic activities now common in the labor market, including, for example, banking and finance, retail sales, hotels and restaurant work, and healthcare, to mention but a few. The service economy also includes part of the vastly expanded information technology industry, primarily software design and the exchange of information through publishing, video production, and the likes. Not the assembling of electronics and the likes. Information technology forms the core of a post-industrial society, also described as the information revolution, because it is the mechanism through which most services are delivered and organized. Whereas the Industrial Revolution was once seen as the source for broad-scale social change, now the Information Revolution will probably be one of the greatest sources for social and economic change in the future. Nature of markets. Most nations encompass capitalist markets, subsistence economies, and elements of socialism as well. Nevertheless, the market is an increasingly dominant economic institution throughout the world. The nature of markets can be seen in the following dimension. Corbin, 1997. 1. Markets are economic institutions that regulate exchange behavior. In a market, different values or prices are established for a particular goods and services. Values that vary according to changing levels of supply and demand and are usually expressed in terms of a common measure of exchange or currency. 2. A market is not the same thing as a marketplace. As an economic institution, a market governs exchange of particular goods and services throughout a society. This is what we mean when we speak of the housing market, for example. A marketplace, on the other hand, is an actual location where buyers and sellers make business or commercial exchanges. Buyers and sellers of jewelries, for example, like to be able to gather in a single place to examine the goods to be exchanged. The same is true for many other goods, such as clothing and automobiles. 3. Market transactions are governed by agreement or contracts in which a seller agrees to supply a particular item and the buyer agrees to pay for it. Exchanges based on contracts are a significant factor in the development of modern markets. 4. The use of contracts makes impersonal relations possible. It neutralizes the relevance of the other roles of the participant, such as kinship and other personal relationships that govern exchanges in non-market situations. In contractual relations, for example, the fact that people are friends or kin does not, in principle, change the terms of their agreement and the need to repay debts. 5. Among hunting and gathering people and in relatively isolated agrarian society before the century, markets in the modern sense of the term did not exist. In social scientific terms, a society cannot be said to have a fully developed market economy if many of the commodities it produces are not exchanged for a common currency at prices determined by the forces of supply and demand. 6. The spread of markets into non-market societies has been accelerated by political conquest and colonialism, as well as by the desire among tribal and peasant people to obtain the goods produced by industrial societies. To illustrate this point and to show what happens as a small-scale society becomes integrated into world markets, Consider the case of the Tifi, a tribal society in Benue State of Nigeria. Economic system. The three major economic systems that have evolved in the world are capitalism, socialism, communism. The description that follow are the ideal types. That is, many societies have a mix of economic system, but each type is distinct in its principles and organizations. These economic systems are discussed. 1. Capitalism. This is an economic system that is based on the principle of market competition, private properties, and the pursuit of profit. Under the system of capitalism, the means of production are privately owned. The means of production refers to the system by which goods are produced and distributed. To say that in capitalist society, some people who own the means of production does not simply mean that people own property. It means that some people control the natural resources and own the industries in which goods are produced and sold. Within capitalist society, stakeholders together own corporations, each owning a share of the corporation's wealth. Under capitalism, owners keep the profit from the revenue that is generated. Profit is created by selling a product at a price more than the cost of creating it. Thus, owners pay workers less than the value of what they produce. Under capitalism, workers produce the goods and provide the services, whereas owners disproportionately consume goods and reap the profits. This class relationship is what defines the system of capitalism. The capitalist basis of society in the United States and any other part of the world shapes the character of the nation's other institutions. Healthcare institutions, for example, are administered on a profit-based system. In other industrialized societies, healthcare is regarded as human right that is paid for and administered by state agencies, a more socialist model. Other institutions are also shaped by capitalism. Even public school systems in some cities are now being run by private companies. 2. Socialism. Socialism is an economic institution characterized by state ownership and management of the basic industries. That is, the means of production are the property of the state. In many nations, the global forces of capitalism mix with socialist principles. Many European nations, for example, have strong elements of socialism. Sweden supports numerous state-run social services, such as healthcare, education, and social welfare programs, but its industry is essentially capitalist. Likewise, the state in the Great Britain has historically owned the basic industries of the country, such as railroads, mine, and communication industries. Most other industrial entities are privately owned. Mixed economy, like that of Sweden, operates in developing countries like Nigeria, where numerous state-run social services such as healthcare, education, and social welfare programs are supported by the government. Other nations are more strongly socialist, though they are not immune from the penetrating influence of global capitalism. The People's Republic of China, formerly a strongly socialist society, is currently undergoing transformation to a mix of socialist and capitalist principles. This change occurs with state engagement of a market-based economy, the introduction of privately owned industries, and increased engagement in the international capitalist economy. Many developing nations have pledged socialist principles, but socialism in the developing world has frequently met with considerable hostility from the capitalist world powers. 3. Communism. Communism is sometimes described as socialism in its purest form. In pure communism, industry cannot be the private property of owners. Instead, the state is the sole owner of the means of production. A critical feature of communist economic has been the centralization of the economy, in which administrators declare prices, quotas, and production goals for their entire country. This is perhaps the most striking difference between communism and capitalism. Under capitalism, market forces are permitted to dictate these decisions. Communist philosophy argues that capitalism is fundamentally unjust because powerful owners take more from laborers and societies than they give, and use their power to maintain these inequalities between workers and owners. As a result of this, Karl Marx thought that capitalism would inevitably be overthrown when workers worldwide united against the system that exploited them. Class divisions were supposed to be erased at that time, along with private property and all forms of inequalities. Study session summary. In this study session, we discussed how the Industrial Revolution of Europe was established and its features. We also examined the concept of the economic system, laying more emphasis on the 3 economic systems that have evolved over the ages: the capitalist economic system, the socialist economic system, and the communist economic systems. That ends study session 8. Thanks for listening.